Osho's stories. Bodhidharma with one shoe on his foot, one shoe on his head. Lao Tse says, all the world says, my teachings greatly resembles folly. Because it is great, therefore it resembles folly. Because it is great, that is why it looks like folly. Deep down, if you search within yourself, you will also see that if suddenly Mahavir comes and stand here naked, you will think that he is a fool. What is he doing here? Lao Tse comes here, you will not be able to recognize him. It will be impossible for you to recognize him. He will look like a perfect fool. Bodhidharma reached China. The whole country was waiting for him. The king himself had come to the border of the country to receive him. 1,000,000 people had gathered because a great master was coming, and when the master appeared, people started giggling. It was impossible to believe their own eyes. Even the emperor felt very uneasy because this man Bodhidharma had one shoe on one foot and the other shoe he was carrying on his head. What manner of man was this? The king said, "Excuse me, sir, but what are you doing? We had come to receive a sane man. Are you insane?" Bodhidharma laughed and said, "So you have failed in the examination. If you can understand this only, then can you understand other things that I have to say? If you cannot tolerate such a small contradiction, it is not much, just carrying a shoe on the head. If you cannot tolerate and understand this much, it will be useless for me to stay here." He turned back, he left the town, went to the forest. He said, "There is no need to stay. Nobody will be able to understand me. Now I will wait. Those who can understand me, they should come to me." He never entered into the capital again. Contradictions are very difficult for the mind. Mind lives in a routine. The shoe must be on the foot. That is the accepted thing. It should not be carried on the head. Such an innocent thing. He was not doing any harm to anybody, but no, impossible. We have a leveling of everything. The corpse floating in the river. One day or other you will come to the wide river where all is taken and you are felt totally alone with no possessions. A Chinese allegory tells about a monk who was in search of Buddha. He traveled for years and years, and then finally he arrived in the country where Buddha lived. Just a river had to be crossed, and he would be face to face with Buddha. He was ecstatic. He inquired whether he could get a ferry or boat to go to the other shore. For the river was very wide, but people on the shore informed him, "Nobody will be able to take you there because there is a legend that whatsoever goes to the other shore never comes back. So nobody can dare to take you there. You will have to swim." Afraid, of course, but the river was very wide, but still finding no other way, the monk started swimming. Just in the middle of the river, he saw a corpse floating. Coming closer and closer towards him, he became afraid. He wanted to avoid the corpse. He tried in many ways to dodge, but he couldn't. The corpse proved very tricky. Howsoever he tried, the corpse kept coming closer and closer. Then, finding no way to escape from it, and moreover, curiosity also possessed him because the corpse seemed to be the corpse of a Buddhist monk. The austere robe, the clean-shaved head. Taking courage, he allowed the corpse to come near. In fact, rather on the contrary, he himself swam towards the corpse. He looked at the face and started laughing madly because it was his own corpse. He could not believe his eyes, but it was so. He looked again and again, but it was his own corpse. And then the corpse floated by down the river, and he watched all his past go with it, all that he had learned, all that he had possessed, all that he had been, the ego, the center of his mind, the self. Everything floated off with the corpse. He was totally empty. Now there was no need to go to the other shore, no need to go to the other shore, because once his past had been taken by the river, he himself was Buddha. He started laughing because he had been searching for the Buddha without, and the Buddha was within. He came back laughing to the same shore he had left just a few minutes before, but nobody would recognize him. He even told people, I am the same man, but they laughed. He was not the same man, he was not really, and that was the reason for the legend that nobody comes back. Whosoever goes to the other shore, everybody had come back, but they were not the same. The old was dead, and the absolutely new had come in its place. I would like this allegory to be as deeply implanted in your being as possible. This is going to be your future if you really go on and go journeying onwards towards the Buddha land to become the ultimate, to know the ultimate. One day or other, you will come to the white river where all that you have done, all that you can do, all that you have possessed, all that you can possess, all that you have been, all that you can be, all is taken by the wide river. It moves with the flow slowly towards the ocean, and you are left totally alone and no possession, with nobody, with no mind. In that aloneness flowers the flower of Buddha. You have come to the Buddha land. You have come to know the Tao. The fox and the grapes. If you cannot reach, don't try to console yourself. Drop the self and drop false consolations, because nobody else is fooled by it except yourself. You are not deceiving anybody, but you can deceive yourself for eternity. Drop the self, drop that too much confidence. It is egoistic, and suddenly there is enlightenment. There is no need to wait. Waiting is there because of the obstacles you are creating. Enlightenment is not creating any obstacles on your path. God is not pushing you away from Himself. Nobody is creating any difficulty for you. If you are not reaching it, it is only because of you. So drop self confidence, drop the self, and then suddenly you find that enlightenment is not something that happens to you. Enlightenment is your very nature, your very being. When the self is not, it is, then it is yourself. And forget all consolations. You must have heard, I have told it many times myself, the famous story of the fox and the grapes. One of the very extraordinary men, Osho, wrote it. A fox comes near a tree, and the tree is full of grapevines, bunches of grapes. She jumps, she tries hard, but cannot reach the grapes. They are too far away. Her jump is not long enough. Then she looks all around. Is something watching? A small hare is watching from a bush, and he asks, Auntie, what is the matter? Couldn't you reach the grapes? She says, No, son, that is not the thing. The grapes are sour. This is consolation. I tell you, the grapes are never sour. At least the grapes of enlightenment never sour. They are always ripe and sweet. And if you cannot reach, don't try to console yourself that you love waiting. Just try to understand, why are you forced to wait? Who is forcing you to wait? You will not find anybody else, just you yourself. That's self-confidence and the self. Madame Curie solves the problem in a dream. If you ask all the great minds, they will say that whatsoever they have attained has come from beyond the mind, not from the mind. Lao Tse says, all the world says, my teaching greatly resembles folly, because it is great, therefore it resembles folly. All greatness is so beyond the mediocre mind, and mind is mediocre. Remember it. Mind itself is mediocre. The mind can never be great. There have never been great minds. If you have heard about great minds, you have heard wrongly. If you ask all the great minds, they will say that whatsoever they have attained has come from beyond the mind, not from the mind. Something that filters through the mind but is not part of the mind. Ask Madame Curie how she solved her problem and became a Nobel laureate. She tried for years, for 3 years almost, to solve a single mathematical problem upon which her whole research depended. She failed and failed and failed. Frustrated one night, she dropped the whole project, went to sleep, and in the night, in a dream, the problem was solved. She got up, wrote it down at the desk, went back to sleep. In the morning, she completely forgot about it. When she came to work at the desk, she was surprised. There was the answer miraculously there. For 3 years, she had been working at it. Where had it come from? And there was nobody else. She was alone in the room, and nobody else could have solved it, even if there had been somebody there. Nobody, no servant could have done that trick. She herself had been working on it for 3 years. Then she remembered a dream. In the dream, she had seen the whole answer return. Then she remembered that she had got up in the night, and then she looked at the handwriting. It was her own. Now the Nobel Prize should not go to the mind, but it has come to the mind. Now Madame Curie is a great mind, and the answer has come from beyond the mind. Always it has been so. Always it will be so. Mind is mediocre. It is good at small things, petty things of the market. You can run a small business. You can earn a little money. You can have a bank balance. There it is okay, but not beyond that. A man spat on Buddha's face. Reaction is out of the past. If you react out of old habits, out of mind, then you are not responding. To be responsive is to be totally alive in this moment, here now. What is the difference between reaction and response? There is a lot of difference, not only in quantity but quality. A reaction is out of the past, a response is out of the present. You react out of the past, old patterns. Somebody insults you. Suddenly, the old mechanism starts functioning. In the past, people have insulted you and you have behaved in a certain way. You behave in the same way again. You are not responding to this insult and this man. You are simply repeating an old habit. You have not looked at this man and this new insult. It has a different flavor. You are just functioning like a robot. You have a certain mechanism inside you. You push the button, you say, "This man has insulted me," and you react. The reaction is not to the real situation. It is something projected. You have seen the past in this man. It happened. Buddha was sitting under a tree talking to his disciples. A man came and spat on his face. He wiped it off and he asked the man, "What next? What do you want to say next?" The man was a little puzzled because he himself never expected that. When you spit on somebody's face, he will ask, "Now, what's next?" He had had no such experience in his past. He had insulted people and they had become angry and they had reacted or if they were cowards and weaklings. They had smiled, trying to bribe the man, but Buddha was like neither. He was not angry, nor in any way offended, nor in any way cowardly, but just matter of fact, he said, "What next?" There was no reaction on his past. His disciples became angry, they reacted. Buddha's closest disciple Anand said, "This is too much and we cannot tolerate it. You keep your teachings with you, and we will just show this man that he cannot do what he has done. He has to be punished for it, otherwise, everybody will start doing things like that." Buddha said, "You keep silent. He has not offended me, but you are offending me. He is new, a stranger, and he may have heard something about me from somebody, has formed some idea, a notion of me. He has not spat on me, he has spat on his notion, his idea of me, because he doesn't know me at all. So, how can he spit on me? He must have heard from people something about me, that this man is an atheist, a dangerous man who is throwing people off their track, a revolutionary, a corrupter. He must have heard something about me. He has formed a notion, an idea. He has spat on his own idea. If you think on it deeply," Buddha said, "he has spat on his own mind. I am not part of it, and I can see that this poor man must have something else to say, because this is a way of saying something, spitting is a way of saying something. There are moments when you feel that language is impotent. In deep love, in intense anger, in hate, in prayer, there are intense moments when language is impotent. Then you have to do something. When you are in deep love, you kiss the person or embrace the person. What are you doing? You are saying something. When you are angry, intensely angry, you hit the person, you spit on him, you are saying something. I can understand him. He must have something more to say. That is why I am asking, what next? The man paused, even more puzzled, and Buddha said to his disciples, "I am more offended by you because you know me, and you have lived for years with me, and still you react." Puzzled, confused, the man returned home. He could not sleep the whole night. It is difficult when you see a Buddha, it is difficult to sleep again, and the way you used to sleep before. Impossible. Again and again he was haunted by the experience. He couldn't explain it to himself. What had happened? He was trembling all over and perspiring. He had never come across such a man. He had shattered his whole mind and his whole pattern, his whole past. Next morning, he was back there. He threw himself at Buddha's feet. Buddha asked him again, "What next?" This too is a way of saying something that cannot be said in language. When you come and touch my feet, you are saying something which cannot be said ordinarily, for which all words are a little narrow, it cannot be contained in them. Buddha said, "Look, Anand, this man is again here. He is saying something. This man is a man of deep emotions." The man looked at Buddha and said, "Forgive me for what I have done yesterday." Buddha said, "Forgive, but I am not the same man to whom you did it. The Ganges gone on flowing. It is never the same Ganges again. Every man is a river. The man you spat upon is no more here. I look just like him, but I am not the same. Much has happened in these 24 hours. The river has flowed so much. Only in appearance I look the same. So I cannot forgive you, because I have no grudge against you, and you also are new. I can see you are not the same man who came yesterday, because that man was angry. He was He spat, and you are bowing at my feet, touching my feet. How can you be the same man? You are not the same man. So let us forget about it. Those two, the man who spat and the man on whom he spat, both are no more. Come closer. Let us talk of something else. This is response. Reaction is out of the past. If you react out of old habits, out of mind, then you are not responding. To be responsive is to be totally alive in this moment here now. Response is a beautiful phenomena. It is life. Reaction is dead, ugly, rotten. It is a corpse. 99% of the time you react and you call it response. Rarely it happens in your life that you respond, but whenever it happens, you have a glimpse. Whenever it happens, the door to the unknown opens.